Hi, I'm your host, Kelly Jo, and this is the Nourished Motherhood podcast, a show dedicated to bringing together the voices of motherhood and helping women connect with others and themselves through the power of sharing honest, vulnerable stories. Because every woman deserves to have a place where her voice is heard. We believe that supporting mothers is one of the healthiest things we can do for our society. There's a balance of beauty and grit to be found in every woman's story. And we're so honored you're here to listen, connect, and grow with us. Let's dive in. Was motherhood a complete surprise for you? It was for my new friend, Carly Brown. Carly is a holistic health coach, yogi, juice enthusiast, wife, and mother that beat thyroid cancer naturally. She recently launched Alchemy Juice, a local juice delivery company in Austin, Texas, and has a passion to teach others the same detox steps and healthy habits she used to beat cancer through her Instagram feed and the Daily Detox program. In today's Voices of Motherhood episode, we dive deep into Carly's journey into motherhood, what it was like to receive a cancer diagnosis, and how she found self-healing through holistic and natural pathways. This conversation was so inspiring for me, and I guarantee after listening to today's episode, you too will be inspired to be your best self, have courage to honor your own path, and ask for help when you need it. So let's dive in. All right, we're recording, and I am here with Carly, and I am just so excited for the conversation we're about to have. I have followed you on Instagram for the last couple of years, and I've just been so inspired by your journey. You share so vulnerably and authentically about your journey into motherhood, receiving a cancer diagnosis, and the ins and outs of your healing journey. And it's been really eye-opening for me. I feel like as a nutritional therapist myself, like I know a lot about nutrition, but you've really opened my eyes to all these different holistic therapies I didn't really even know much about. And I think just seeing your whole process has been really powerful. I've even joined your daily detox program, I think this time last year, and I think it was really fun. So I want to hear more about that because I know that's a really awesome resource that you have that others can get connected with. So thank you for being here, and I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm pumped to be here. Thanks for having me.
So can you tell us a little bit about like where you're at, where you live, and like what life looks like for you right now before we kind of go back in time?
Yeah, so right now I live in Austin, Texas. I run a juice company. It's called Alchemy Juice. It's raw organic cold pressed juice. And we do delivery all around town. We just opened up a cafe within like kind of a wellness space where we do superfood lattes and grab and go juices. And the lattes are all made with our own homemade nut milks. So that's a very, very fun project that really has a piece of my heart.
Oh,
I am a mother to my 2.5-year-old son named Cruz, and I'm also 10 weeks pregnant. So I'm
woohoo.
navigating, navigating the first trimester. I was telling you right before I got on the podcast, I was napping. So I just, which, is not, I don't tend to be like a nap person, but with the business and with healing and with motherhood, like I've needed to find a way to invite more rest into my schedule. So I'm really honoring that right now. And like you mentioned, I run a detox program called the Daily Detox, inspired by everything I learned in my own healing journey over the past 2 years, holistically healing thyroid cancer. So that's kind of a little snippet. I'm from New York originally, but Austin's been home for about 10 years now, and we're actually
Wow.
building a house out in Dripping Springs, which is kind of it's like the hill country outside of Austin. It's about 30 minutes outside of the city. So I'm very much looking forward to kind of not hearing siren. I mean, Cruz loves fire trucks. So he's excited because we kind of live off the highway right now. So he always hears all the sirens going, but I am excited for a little bit more quiet.
Yes, I can imagine. I love Austin. It's such a fun city, but
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
lot going on all the time.
Yeah, and it's grown exponentially. Like I mentioned, I'm from New York and I moved here to move to the country 10 years ago. And my husband is from Montana and he moved here from the middle of nowhere in Montana, like a cattle ranch in the middle of nowhere to move to the city. So it's just funny because he got a lot more of the city and I'm not really in the country at all anymore. So
Oh my goodness, that's so wild.
Mhm.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I'm up here in Alaska, which is pretty rural.
Oh,
So coming to places like Austin is like, whoa, this is amazing. Like I can probably relate with your husband of like, ooh, city life.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was big city life to him.
Yeah. Wow. So kind of what's something right now like that's inspiring you just about your day-to-day life and being a mom at this point?
I mean, just watching my son grow. Cruz is at this age right now where he's really talking a lot and he's really discovering the world around him. And he has really strong opinions about things and things he likes and doesn't, and what he wants to eat and where he wants to go. And I'm just kind of fascinated by watching him discover the world. We can kind of get into this in a bit, but we didn't know that we wanted children, my husband and I. We kind of we were world travelers. We worked digitally on our computer running a digital marketing company kind of before we are doing what we did now. We traveled all over and lived in Costa Rica, and that was kind of our trajectory, was to keep doing that. By the way, I'm sorry, Cruz is getting up from his nap right now, if you can hear him, but my
That
mom's going to
is
grab him.
okay. That is the life of moms. It's great.
Truly. And so we kind of thought that we were going to keep doing that. And I ended up getting pregnant, like very, very surprise pregnancy. And so I was just like, okay, this baby wants to come. He wants to be part of our family and kind of just explore the world alongside of us. So motherhood has all been like kind of a big adjustment for me. And I kind of carried it was like, not, I wouldn't say shame, but it was kind of like, I know so many people, they want to be mothers so bad. And for
Mhm.
me, now I love being a mother, but there was a really, really big adjustment period. I think that now he's at this age where I can really play with him and interact with him. And it's just a fun time. I really love, like everyone says terrible twos, but I love to.
Yeah. Yes, I can totally relate. I mean, I have a 3.5-year-old, so that 2 and 3, it's just been, yes, there's moments that are really challenging, but it is so fun to see the world through their eyes and to get that glimpse into like simple joy, I feel like, and wonderment with the world at hand.
Yeah,
Ah.
I know.
All right. So thinking back to like it was such a surprise for you guys and that whole journey into parenthood. What was your pregnancy like? Did you enjoy being pregnant with Cruz or was it a hard adjustment since, it was such a surprise?
I think that it was just kind of like the whole experience was like, whoa, wow, okay, that's happening now. Like, you know, this time when I'm pregnant, I'm like, I'm settled into it. I kind of know what to expect. It's a lot more of a gentle process, let's say. It just felt like everything was shocking last
Yeah.
time. And I didn't, I still think whenever I meet women and they're like, I love being pregnant, I'm like, wow, good on you. Like, I don't know that I can 100% say I love being pregnant.
Yeah.
But I love the life that comes from it. I love, bringing babies into this world and watching them grow. Like, I love the end product.
Hmm.
Um, but it is a challenge for me. And especially with this round, I've been so dedicated to my own healing journey for the past couple years, really focusing on detoxification and on raw food and all of these things that I've kind of had to steer away from, in the last 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's been an adjustment too. But I can do it with a lot more grace and ease because, like I said, I know what the end product is. Where even when I was pregnant with Cruz the first time, I'm like, okay, then what happens when the baby gets here? Like everything was so, I had to, I know friends who want to get pregnant in like 3 years and they're reading parenting books now.
Yeah.
Like that, that was like just not me. I just felt like I was completely thrown into it. And, a couple months before I found out that I was pregnant with Cruz, my dad had passed away
Oh,
and we were supposed to be moving to South Korea to teach English. And then because I got pregnant, we couldn't. So it was like, not only was I pregnant, but there were just these very big life. It was an enormous transition in my life outside of the pregnancy. And so I
yeah.
wasn't settled. We'd moved from Austin to New York. We ended up in Montana. It was just a weird phase of life. And so I kind of felt like, with this second pregnancy, I'm like, okay, I'm settled. Like we're building a house, we're in our community, we're with our friends, like I'm running my business. It just feels like a very different energy. I'm like, okay, we're going to do it one more time. I'm going to do it a little differently this time. And then that's going to be that.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like life today looks so different than it did 3 years ago for you
Oh
guys.
yeah. Yes.
Wow.
Incredibly.
Wow. And were you into holistic and natural health like beforehand when you were pregnant with Cruz, or was that something new when you got your cancer diagnosis that you started to explore? What was that like for you? How did you approach your pregnancy then?
Yeah, so I've been into holistic health for many, many years. I've actually been a health coach for over a decade. Taught yoga, very into mindfulness, the mind, body, spirit connection. And so I did bring that into my pregnancy, and I read all the like kind of, how to, holistic practices to invite into pregnancy. We
Hmm.
did a home birth with him. That was really an incredible experience. It was very smooth. I had my first contraction at 4:20 in the morning, and he was born at 10:19 in the morning.
Whoa.
Yeah, so it
Awesome.
was a super smooth, I mean, very tough. It was very tough, but it was smooth, and he was born in the tub like I wanted to do. I followed a lot of Mama Natural's kind of
Hmm.
teachings. Like
Hmm.
I did her online course, and I did the red raspberry leaf tea and the dates, and kind of all the things that she recommends. And so I think that I'm going to probably end up doing another home birth. I thought about like maybe I'll go to a birth center this time and just try it out a different way. And I toured a couple birth centers, and they were like, and you have to do this and you can't do this. And then I honestly, the idea of getting in the car once I'm in labor, now that I haven't done that, like sounds terrible. I was like, what if we're stuck in traffic? Like, and because Cruz came so quickly, I feel like this baby's going to come super quick. I'm like, I'm going to end up having the baby in the car or something. So
Uh,
I think I'll just do it at home, keep it easy.
Yeah, I mean, we chose a birth center with our daughter, and we were 45 minutes away, and she was born
Oh,
during
wow.
a blizzard. And I too, I was a little longer than you, but super quick in terms of how fast she came. And I totally thought she was gonna be born in our car.
How
And
was that drive? How was that 45-minute drive?
I mean, it was whiteout conditions. And so it was pretty gnarly. And
Wow.
yeah, our midwife was coming an hour in the opposite direction to the birth center, and we were an hour this way, and we were meeting in the middle. So yeah, it was, especially not knowing what to expect your first time having a baby. It was pretty
And
wild.
And
Yeah.
that's what happened to me too, because we were in Montana. It was February. It was
Oh,
the worst snowstorm they had in 20 years. And my
yeah.
midwife was an hour away. And so she didn't get there until like 9 a.m. And I was 8 centimeters
Oh.
dilated, like through transition when they got there. They're like, okay, we're about to have a baby here.
Woo, yeah. So what tips do you have? Because we're doing a home birth this time, and I would love to hear what any tips you would have based on your first experience.
I mean, I think the biggest thing for me was just kind of setting the space. Like
Mm.
we were actually in an Airbnb. The reason is because like I said, we were leaving to move to South Korea. So we had subletted our apartment. We had sold everything in Austin. We were like on our way out. And so once I found out I was pregnant, we were like, let's just leave anyway. We were still in our traveling mindset. We spent some time with my mom in New York. And then we were like, let's go to Montana, where Ross is from. We've always wanted to go there for some time. So we just rented an Airbnb in the mountains for 6 months. And so I really grounded into that space. And I
Mm.
felt like for 6 months, I primed it to be prepared for birth. And that's kind of one of the things I was hesitant about going into a home birth in like my home, the home that my everyday life, live,
Right.
work, was that it wouldn't have that same energy, like that same grounded essence. But I'm realizing that I can just kind of have a corner or a little sweet space that maybe I sit in or I meditate in, or I put special items like that will remind me, because my mantra is always smooth, safe, speedy home birth. And
Ooh.
so it's like when I'm in that space that I honor that smooth, safe, speedy home birth. And So I would say setting the energy and like kind of envisioning how your labor is going to go. I used to walk on the treadmill every day, and I'd be like, smooth, safe, speedy home birth. And just like every day I would do these visualization exercises of seeing me holding baby. And there was just like, I just knew it was going to go well because I had aligned my energy and my vibration and my will kind of
Hmm.
for it to. So the laying the foundation, visualizing, setting the energetic space, and just seeing playing out the birth of your dreams, like playing out that vision over and over and over again was very, very helpful for me. And then once you're in labor, completely surrendering to the process, then it's
Yeah.
like I did all the work to get there and I was ready. And then once I was in labor, it's like, okay, God, take over and guide this. Like now baby's sort of in charge, God is in charge. And there was that essence of surrender. So there is like, that's like the balance to me of like that masculine, feminine, energetic dance of like me cultivating, getting really clear, visualizing, aligning. And then once I'm in labor, not trying to manipulate the situation, surrendering to a higher power. Please, more than anything, baby gets here safe, mama's safe. And that kind of dance, I feel like really served me. And on a very physical level, walking every day. I walked an hour every day of my pregnancy, and I really believe that contributed to a speedy birth.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think so much of the time, like, it really is the prep work, right? We do the
Yeah.
work to begin with. And then what you were saying is the surrender and really just trusting your body, right? Too, to do what it was
Yeah.
designed to do. That's really
Right.
powerful. So you had a beautiful home birth. What were those early days of motherhood like for you?
Well, I ended up with the worst case of mastitis that my midwife had ever seen. I had 105 fever on day 3. Yeah. And I kept trying to do things naturally, and I was taking all the things. And my husband, who's very, very supportive of me always wanting to do things like alternatively or holistically first,
Hmm.
right? I'm not like anti anything, but I always want to try things holistically first. He was like, please, like, take some medicine, please take some antibiotics. Like, I'm scared, like you're really, really sick. And so I ended up taking an antibiotic, which I didn't want to do, but I did I did everything I could to support it. It was just kind of the
Yeah.
nature of the beast. But that was quite difficult. But once I was through that, then it was just kind of like the normal, round the clock breastfeeding and up at night and changing diapers. And that's the hard part. And the sweet part is that you're just completely head over heels in love with this little human who like changes your life in a second the moment you see their face. And so in that, like the very rawness and realness of motherhood, which is like how hard it is and how tired you are and like just completely empty and exhausted, and at the same time like so full and in love and happy and blissful. It's like for me, motherhood is like the most extreme of all the emotions. Like
Yes.
even now when he's 2.5, it's like he'll throw a tantrum, like so upset, freaking out. And then he'll be like, mama, and nuzzle me. I'm like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do with, like, what do I do here?
Yeah. Like, you're the bestest mom, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. I feel like so much of motherhood is like this duality of holding both of those things of like, how
Mhm.
do we hold those really tough moments, but also continue to be present and treasure the joy before us? And I think
Mhm.
sometimes that can be a hard line to walk to like simultaneously hold those two things.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. It's a
Wow.
challenge of motherhood and still try and be our own person.
Yeah, right? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes. So how far into, motherhood were you when you got that diagnosis? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so we stayed in Montana until Cruz was 3 months old. And when he was 3 months old, we were like, all right, it's time to get back on the road. And we moved to Mexico. And we kind of like moved to Mexico. Like we moved all of our stuff. Like we were planning on living down there for a while. And we rented an apartment. And we were just going to keep doing what we were doing, like working remotely and just kind of like teaching Cruz Spanish and English so we could be bilingual. And so we were down there for 4 or 5 months, and I was not feeling well. But at the same time, Cruz was like such a young baby and still not sleeping through the night. And, I felt like my hair was falling out. I was constantly tired, no matter what, no matter how clean I ate, how much I worked out. I felt like I couldn't, like the baby weight wasn't budging. And so I went to a doctor, and I had a thyroid panel done while I was down in Mexico, and everything came back normal. And I was like on one side, I was like, okay, that's a relief. And on the other side, I was like, well, what the heck is going on here? And so I found this woman who did like kind of full body therapeutic massage. She was like an intuitive and a body worker. And I was like, you know what? Let me just go have her work on my body. Like maybe I'm just really, really tired. Like maybe this is just motherhood and I didn't know. But I saw other women kind of bounce back a little bit quicker than I was. So she kind of had me like stand against a wall, and she did an evaluation of my body. And after the massage, she was like, just so you know, you have a lump on your neck. And I was like, oh, interesting. Like how much had I probably even looked in the mirror in that time? I'm
Right.
just in the throes of new motherhood. And I was like, all right, well, it's probably just something hormonal. Like I'll go get an ultrasound or something to look at it. So I went to a hospital in Mexico. They did an ultrasound and they wanted me to get a biopsy done, but I didn't have fluent enough Spanish to understand what they were saying, and their English was very broken. I kept trying to get someone else to like translate for me. And I was like, I'm not going to have a biopsy. I kind of knew the dangers of biopsies, and I didn't want to stick a needle in my neck in a foreign country. And I was just like, I'm not going to do anything right now. I'm just going to watch it. He seemed to be like concerned, but I was just, I don't know. I wasn't that worried. I was just like, I'm just going to watch it. So anyhow, I kept not feeling well, and we decided to leave Mexico just because it just wasn't really flowing. We were like, let's just move back to Austin where our friends are. We can raise Cruz around, our community. And by the time we got back here, back to Austin, from the time that I had seen the bump, it had doubled in size. And I
Wow.
was like brushing my teeth one night, and I was like, this looks bigger. Like, I think I need to follow up with someone. And so I went here and got an ultrasound. In that ultrasound report I could read, and it was like red flags everywhere. Like it could be these 5 types of cancer. Like it was just not good. Like the woman who read it to me was like, this isn't good. And I'm like, what do you mean it's not good? Like, what do you like? Are you saying I could have cancer? And she was like, you could. And I'm like, no effing way. Like, not the way I live my life. No, So, okay. So she told me from there, she was like, go see a thyroid specialist. That's kind of the next step here. So I went to go see a thyroid specialist. Ross and I, my husband Ross and I went, and I'm sitting there, and I'm telling her all of my symptoms. And she's like, you might have tuberculosis. And I was like, okay. She was like, it doesn't sound like thyroid cancer. You might have tuberculosis. And I was like, okay, well, that's a relief. At least it's not cancer. And so she starts to do an ultrasound on me, because she runs her own ultrasound as a
Okay.
thyroid practitioner. And before she even did a biopsy, she was like, oh no, this is thyroid cancer. And I was like, what the hell? Like, oh my God. There's no way. She was like, well, we're going to do a biopsy to confirm it, but I can tell that this is what it is. And there was just a lot of, shock and fear and grief. And, Cruz was less than a year old. And I just, more than anything, it was like, I almost felt disappointed. I lived my life in a very mindful way. It was like, people like me don't get cancer. Like if you smoke or you eat fast food every day, like I don't get cancer. It was kind of like cancer to me always felt like this like far off thing. Like, oh, you hear
Mm-hmm.
about it all around, but it's like it wouldn't happen to me. And now obviously I've learned that that's not the truth. And, I think it's 1 in 3 men and 1 in 2 women, almost 50% of our population is dealing with cancer. It's everywhere, whether it doesn't matter. And it's because of toxicity. It's because we live in a toxic world, which is why I've ended up focusing so much on detox. Anywho, so the biopsy came back and it was positive for papillary thyroid cancer. And, they say that that's kind of one of the good cancers to have, which kind of annoyed me because is there any such thing as a good cancer to have?
Right.
But they say it's a good cancer because we can just cut it out and radiate it and put you on a pharmaceutical and you'll be good to go the rest of your life. And I was like, what? So right away, my doctor called me and said, I can get you in next week for surgery. And I was like, hold up. The little that I do know about cancer is that I know that it tends to come back and it comes back with more of a vengeance. And when it comes back again, it's even more deadly. So I am a 33-year-old woman who eats organic, shops at the farmer's market, doesn't seem to have any deep trauma in her life, practices yoga. Like, how do you just want me to cut something out without understanding how this happened to me? Because if I don't understand how this happened to me, it's going to come back and it's going to come back with more of a vengeance and it's going to kill me. It's like, I had like a very fierce, like mama bear energy to me that was like, I have a baby, like I need you to hold up and I need to get to the root cause. Like this honestly didn't have to do with me, like being like, I want to heal holistically. It had to do with me being like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to heal and heal at the foundation, at the root of this, so that this story of cancer is like, there's an end to it in my life. Like this is a chapter that I will be able to close. And so I essentially put off surgery for 2 weeks and was like, let me just research what my options are. I'm not saying that I'm anti-surgery. I'm not going to say I'm not going to do it, but I need to do other research first. And it was in that time that I started learning about people like Chris Wark, who he had stage 3 colon cancer. He did have surgery, but he opted out of chemotherapy. And then they said, I think they gave him 3 years to live. And it was like 25 years ago or something. And I started reading all these stories of people who healed in like both an integrative and holistic way, who were given, and I wasn't given, like a lifespan or anything like that. I was reading stories of people with more progressed cases of cancer. And I thought, well, if it works for them, it would have to work for me too. And I can do this. Like I know how to change my lifestyle. I've done this before. And so essentially overnight, I became a raw foodist. I started juicing 64 ounces of juice a day. I started reading voraciously, and I actually went to Instagram. Like the moment I was diagnosed, I was like, hey, I was just diagnosed with thyroid cancer. Like send me any and all resources, because I had already been creating a community online and they were like-minded to me. They were like-minded with health and mindfulness. And I knew that was like, at that time, it was like 10,000 people who maybe knew more than I did about this. And so I just started compiling everything. I did it for on my own for those 2 weeks, like, cooking the food and juicing and, going around to hyperbaric oxygen chamber appointments and therapy appointments and IV appointments, just from what I was reading about.
Wow.
And I was like, you know what, this is quite stressful because I'm sitting in Austin traffic all day. I'm gone from like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I need this all in one space. And that's when I started kind of understanding that there were these things called holistic cancer clinics, where you go and all these things that I had been doing, just driving around town, were all in one place. And you had a doctor, an MD, looking over you. Because that was the thing. It was like, I was kind of my own, obviously it was only a couple of weeks. It felt like a lifetime, but I was like, I need someone like drawing labs on me. I need someone looking at scans. Like I need a doctor monitoring me to make sure like what I'm doing is working and okay. Yeah. And so that was really the biggest draw for me to spend the money to go to a holistic cancer clinic, was to have someone accountable, to be like, okay, this is working, this isn't, let's tweak this. And so, yeah, so we picked up and we moved to Tampa, Florida for 8 weeks, and I attended a clinic there. So,
wow.
I mean, I can keep going, but
yeah, no, I mean, and I want to keep diving in, but like those first 2 weeks, I mean, I feel like cancer has such a There's so much fear with that word
Yeah.
too. Like, what was that like just emotionally as you were processing Ross? Like, you have a baby, like, what were those like? Were you like having flashes of your mind of like, this could be it? Or were you just like, that wasn't even an option? Or what was that
In
process?
in the beginning, like in the doctor's office, yeah, like when she first told me, I was crying a lot and I was very, very scared. Yeah, just overwhelming fear. But I can say that it didn't really last that long before I was like, no, I'm going to do something about this. Like this isn't it. Two things happened. One, it was like, this isn't it. This isn't the way the story goes. Like, I'm going to do something about this.
Mm-hmm.
And two, as I started learning about thyroid cancer, I understood that it doesn't tend to be life threatening. And so I felt like I had, I understood that if what I'm going to go try and do doesn't work, I can always fall back on the surgery, radiation, and pharmaceutical drugs. Like that was there for me. So I felt like I had a little bit of a safety net to try it my way first. And it was the same thing we were talking about with birth. Like I wanted to do a home birth. I wanted things to be natural. And at any point, if Cruz's life or my life was in jeopardy, you better bet I was going to get my butt to a hospital. you know, I always like to try it in a way that's going to leave me. Like when I started thinking about healing from cancer, I was like, how can I heal this and leave myself better off than how I went into it? Like that was my question. Like how can this be an opportunity for me to become like a better, brighter, healthier version of myself? This happened to me. I can't change the fact that I was just got a cancer diagnosis. There's nothing I can do about that. What I can do something about is how the story goes.
Mm.
So I might fail and I might not fail, but I'm willing to at least try. I'm willing to not fail. And now we're 2 years into the journey and I'm healthier than I've ever been and I'm pregnant and I still have my thyroid and I've won and I continue to win. And if that ever changes, then I'll deal with that when the time changes. But that's not what's happening right now. So I think like I've approached it with a very realistic mindset, but also like a victor's mindset and a very empowered mindset. And my first job out of college was working with a personal development company. And I just learned a lot about how we can train our thoughts and how we are the creators of our reality based off of the language that we tell ourselves and based off of the narrative that's in our mind. And so I could have had a narrative where I'm like, this sucks and I'm going to die. And why am I even going to try anything? But like, that's not what I would teach my baby boy to do in those moments. I would tell him to rise up. What can we do? What can we work with? What tools do we have? Like, how can we harness this? We can't always control what happens to us, but we can control how we greet those scenarios of our life. And so if I'm going to teach him to do that, you better bet that I better be living that myself. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I look back on this chapter and I do tell Cruz stories of how this went, like I'm proud. I'm proud to say that I stood up for myself, even when people thought I was crazy or wrong or stupid. I didn't care what they thought. I had to go based off of what felt right for me because it's my life. No one's
Yeah.
living in my body. So yeah, I mean all of it. And I was able to transmute the energy rather quickly to say, okay, what do we need to do about this kind of?
That's really powerful because I feel like fear is one of the number one things that stops us from progressing in life. At least I know when I am living in those moments of complete overwhelm or fear, I'm totally stunted. Like it stunts any growth, any health, any healing. And so I think that's really powerful that you were able to take that and turn the narrative and the story as well.
Well, and I
How?
want to say
Yeah.
something about fear because, since the diagnosis, I've built this successful juice company and like we're building a home and I'm doing things and I'm living in a life that I didn't before the diagnosis. And someone messaged me actually on Instagram the other day and was like, you seem to have attracted like a lot of prosperity since after that diagnosis. Like, why do you think that is? And I was like, because I'm not scared. I'm not scared to fail. Like, if I launched Alchemy, my juice company, and it failed in a month, like, oh, well, I tried. Like, I'm not wrapped up in like, what do people think? And what about this? And no, I don't care because I've had a glimpse of what it feels like to not be here and to not be here for your children and not to be here for life. So it's like, I just want to like embrace the brilliance of being alive. Like it did change me. Like that moment of when the moment someone says you have cancer, that's a life-changing moment. Even if I transmuted the energy, that changed my life. And so it's easy for me to not be scared to fail. And I think that's at the base of like of everything. Okay, so what? In what happens in 5 years? They're like, oh, well, your holistic methods aren't working anymore and you need your thyroid out. Okay, for 5 years, I did things the way I wanted to. Some people could say, wow, like you should have just done this in the beginning. I would never, ever say that. Every step of this journey has taught me so much. And what if alchemy fails in 5 years? Oh, well, why'd you do it anyway? Like, no, that's not the way that's not the way this works. Like I've been taught so much. Life is a journey of learning, and I've been taught so much by all of these. And maybe I never need my thyroid out, and alchemy sells for $100 million. Who knows? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's just I don't the point is I don't know how the story ends, but all of it is a learning experience. So there's no more failing to me anymore.
That's so powerful. And I feel like everything, at least I've seen in my own life, that we've walked through, it prepares us for what's coming ahead, right? Because we don't know what's
Yeah.
ahead, but like these years, these things, these experiences, these tools you're picking up, right? Like it's all in preparation too for who you're becoming and what you're going to face in the years to come. So I think that's something my husband and I were just talking about, of like, if we like, what would we do if like fear wasn't a thing in our life? You know, like if we weren't afraid of this, how would we respond? Okay, let's go with that one. Because
Mhm.
and I think it's something we have to constantly, I think there's so much fear in the airwaves right now and just like in the atmosphere, right? And just what we're walking through as a country. And for us as a family, we've had to keep coming back. Okay, so if fear's not a thing, whatever, how would we live? You know, if we weren't afraid of other
Mhm.
people's expectations of us or their thoughts, how would we live? And so
When we think like we think about what other people think about us. Everyone's just worrying about what people think about them. You know
yeah,
what I mean? And it's like, honestly, no matter what I say, and this is a very powerful experience being on the internet and like sharing your opinions very powerfully. No matter what I say, people are angry. No matter what I say, people love me. Like I could say, let's talk about COVID. Like let's say I said, I'm pro vaccines. I love vaccines. Half the people hate me. I'm not going to vaccinate. No, why would I do that? Half the people hate me. Like, what is it? Just live your life because people are going to be mad no matter what.
so
So,
true.
you know,
Yeah.
that's been a powerful experience there. So,
Definitely. Well, how was it like? Obviously, these last few years, they've been a lot of work. Like it's been work, your healing journey, both physically, emotionally. How have you handled like also juggling that with being a mom as well? And like, have you had help from family taking care of crews too? Because obviously, you go down to Mexico, which I want to kind of dive
mhm.
into some more of your healing journey, but how's just kind of that process of juggling the two?
Yeah, so I got really good at asking for help because I had to. And my mom lived in New York, and she came down to help me in the beginning of my diagnosis and never left. So she still lives with me.
Wow.
And Ross and I actually started Alchemy together, so she's very involved in the business now. So yeah, I mean, having my mom here has been paramount to having that support. But if it wasn't my mom, it's like, making sure that maybe Cruz went to daycare more days a week, or, we've all like in the beginning, every day we sit down. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Who needs to be where, when? And I can do that now. There were days in the beginning of the healing journey where it was like Ross and mom navigating, and I was just, after my dental surgeries and the beginning of the detoxes where I just had to, I went to the clinic and then slept till the next morning. But yeah, having family support and just a willingness to ask for help, I think is a very, very big thing. whether that's family or friends, any type of community. And if it wasn't her, it would have had to been, someone else, and a nanny or daycare or something like that, because I definitely couldn't have done it by myself. I had to really focus. I had to heal full time. I had to dedicate myself to that. I had to pull back on work. I was still doing work. Like I still, even in the beginning, in the very beginning days when I was at the first clinic, I was still doing digital marketing work, but they all knew what was going on. And so they had a lot of grace with me. And sometimes if I was like kind of out for a few days, Ross could jump in and help. And so I think being really transparent with people helped, just saying like, people have a lot of compassion for you when you're going through something like that, and people want to help. I think in the beginning, I tended, not in the beginning, but before this, I tended to be someone where they like, oh, can I help? Can I do anything? And I'd be like, no, 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 I got it. Now, when anyone asks to help, I'm like, yeah, so can you come over at this time? Or could you make some food for Cruz? And I love doing that for other people. Like anytime I see a GoFundMe or a new mama or something, like I'm sending food, I'm donating, because I know how good it is to receive. And I also know how good it feels to give. And
Mm.
when someone really receives my offering, that's a gift to me as much as it is to them. So um yeah, yeah, there's been support along the way, which has been much needed.
Yeah, I think I mean, learning to ask for help, at least for me, is I like to think I can do it all myself, which is such a lie.
No, and we're not meant to. You have to think
No.
about like communal living when we used to raise our children with the grandparents around. And I just, the one family in a home, I think it's created a lot of separation, and it's created a lot of stress for mothers. And I also don't think that we're talking enough to each other about how hard it really is. Like, especially in the digital age of Instagram, where we have to remember Instagram is a highlight reel. Like,
Yeah.
people show what they want you to see. They don't show the baby throwing a tantrum or the sleepless nights. And, so like really having very real conversations with our mother friends, and like, whether that's a group or whatever it is, a chat. I had a text chat going with some friends who were also pregnant the same time as me. And it was just a safe space to be like, wow, today's really hard, or I don't feel well, or this is hurting.
Hmm. Yeah, it's so important to have that support. Um, well, I think it's so cool too that that connection has been able to be fostered between your mom and Cruz too. Like how special for them the bond that they have and will continue to have because of that time together.
Yeah, I think Chris thinks he has three parents. Like
Okay.
he doesn't know. She's been here the whole time. Like he calls me mommy, daddy, and Cece. Like that's grandma. He knows, but it's just like that's his norm. There's three adults here.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So kind of continuing and picking up with your healing journey, you guys moved to Tampa and
Yeah. So we moved to Tampa, and I went to a clinic called Utopia Wellness, which I don't recommend. I didn't like the doctor there. I felt like he was actually very rude. I read reviews of this before I went, and I was like, I don't care that he's rude as long as he can heal me. But he was actually really rude and made me cry several times. I was like, should I get a PET scan? He was like, I don't know if you want. And I was like, well, I'm kind of worried about the radiation. And like, he was just so short with me. And we're scared for our lives. Do you know what I mean? Like, why would you go through all of the trouble and hassle to run a holistic cancer clinic, which isn't easy to do? There's lots of legality wrapped up in it, and then not be compassionate with your patients. So I did do my 8 weeks there, and I saw some positive results. My numbers were all down in the normal range by the time that I left there, like my cancer markers. But a few months later, I got an ultrasound back in Austin that I wanted them to look at. And they essentially said, you're not here anymore. You're no longer our patient, but you can come back for a week at a tune of $7,000 for us to look at your ultrasound.
whew,
And by this point, I had spent my life savings, taken out loans, done a GoFundMe. I was like, there's no more, there's no, like, what do you, no. And so I realized that they weren't going to be my long-term support system. And with cancer, you do need a long-term support system. It doesn't just go away. I mean, the lifestyle, the changes that I've made nutritionally with my detox, with my lifestyle, I mean, they've changed obviously a bit now that I'm pregnant, but like this is going to be a forever practice. So I realized that they weren't going to be my forever home. And so I started looking for another option. And I did look locally, but I'd heard really, really good reviews of a place called Hope for Cancer down in Cancun. And I'd followed the story very closely of a woman who had end stage lung cancer. And she was a young mom, a single mom. I actually have a podcast with her on my podcast is called Here for Healing. Her name is Kate, and I have a phenomenal podcast with her telling her story. And I'd followed her story on Instagram, and she was given 6 months to live, 6 months to 2 years, and she
Oh
was
my
cancer
goodness.
free.
Woo.
And so I was like,
So cool.
I'm going where that lady went. so, so I did the whole like fundraising again, and I got myself to Hope for Cancer. That was June 2020. So I was diagnosed November 2019. By June 2020, I made it to Hope for Cancer. And it was just the most incredible place. I mean, they are so loving. It is a Christian organization. I mean, I guess if I identified with anything, it would be Christian, but I'm not really a religious person. But they pray in the morning, and it's just so full of love and hope. Like that's just the word. The doctors are so kind and compassionate. And what I loved about them is that they support you for a year. So the money that you pay, that it includes a year-long home program. And every month a doctor calls me to check in on me. And that was very important to me when I was thinking about, where I was going to spend my time and like who was going to be my forever healing home. And so there they do a lot of the same things at Utopia, but more. So it was, IV infusions, high dose vitamin C, B17, detox practices like colonics and enemas, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, ozone therapy, heat therapy, light therapy. They also did 2 different types of non-toxic cancer therapies that include injections to strengthen your macrophages, which is like your natural killer cells. So they were just, I mean, incredibly thorough. So I did my first 3 week stay there in June. And then I've returned every 3 months I'm actually going back in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So they are my family. Like I love those people. Like I'm going to Dr. Tony's birthday party. Like he's the
That's
founder
so
of that
cool.
company. Like I love them. So, and I've just seen some incredible stories. 90% of the patients who go there are stage 4. It tends to be a lot of people who tried conventional, and conventional said, there's nothing else we can do for you. And then they try going somewhere like that. So some people, it's too far progressed, but they're comfortable, and they're on the beaches of Cancun, and they're kind of, enjoying what may be like some of their last days. But for many, many people, there's a healing journey, and they live these long, healthy, vibrant lives after doctors told them that there was nothing else they could do. And there's some stage 1 and 2, people who kind of are more holistic focused, who tend to go there from the beginning, like more like what I did. And now when we check my I have a color Doppler ultrasound every 3 months. And essentially what that does is measures blood flow to the mass in my neck. So I started with, I think it was 12 nodules on my thyroid, and I'm down to 3. And of the
Cool.
largest one, it's shrunk. But the most important fact is that there's 80% necrosis, which means cell death. And so 80% of the mass is not alive anymore, which means there's no cancerous activity. So, one thing they really teach there is that our system, the conventional model, attacks a tumor, but cancer is a systemic disease. So the tumor is just kind of like the manifestation of what's going on cellularly in the body. So they say we treat the person with cancer, not the cancer in the person. So whether you have lung cancer, thyroid cancer, breast cancer, they're doing a lot of the same things. They're boosting your immune system. They're helping you detoxify. They're enabling the body to do what the body innately knows how to do, which is heal as a self-healing mechanism. There's little tweaks here and there based off of your lab work and your stool test and your hair analysis and all the incredible testing that they do. But for the most part, they're just making people healthier overall, which allows the body to heal itself. So at this, they gave me the approval to get pregnant, and they're, like I said, I'm going back in a couple weeks. So they're going to check in on everything now that baby's growing and just make sure everything stays good. And And so that's just part of my journey now is I'll probably, the first year I went down every 3 months, then I'll probably start going every 6 months, and maybe I go once a year the rest of my life. But I will always go down there, and I will always have eyes on me so that this never happens again. And in the same breath, I can say that it's been the most transformational experience of my life, and
Hmm.
it's changed every aspect of me, physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. And I believe that God, I was put on this path because I was meant to share some of this, like the number of people that have chosen to go to Hope for Cancer. And even if you pair that with chemo, radiation, and surgery, I know a lot of people who they do conventional and then they go to Hope for Cancer to kind of like rehabilitate and to detox after that, because we all know, regardless of your opinions on things, that chemotherapy is toxic.
Right.
That's why it kills cancer cells, because it kills all cells. And so I just feel really grateful that I've been able to share my voice and to heal myself, and to also contribute to the healing of other people. It's been a really big blessing. I say that I'm not grateful that I got cancer, but I'm grateful for who I've become because of it. And I'm also grateful to not deal with it anymore. Like any further types of cancer, like I've learned my lessons. I've learned about detoxing. I put that all together in the daily detox. And, I think that eating well and working out is one part of like a radiant, healthy life, but we have to think about detoxing. We can eat as clean, we can eat the cleanest food out there. We can work out every day, but it doesn't change the fact that our water and our air and our soil is toxic. So we do all the good things, but also simultaneously, include these detox practices into your everyday life. That's been, I mean, if I could sum up my entire learning, that's it.
That's it. Wow. How about like, I mean, you've talked a lot about your physical like journey to healing. How about the emotional component to it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of holistic or integrative cancer therapies really have a large focus on the emotional aspect of things, because emotions can be trapped into the body. And so I learned about how like grief is connected to the lungs, and how, thyroid disorders are a lack of being able to express oneself. And so all the different emotions that are connected with different glands and organs of the body, and how trapped emotions can manifest into disease. So, I mean, I've done an extensive amount of different types of therapy, kind of like talk therapy and group therapy, past life regression work, recall healing, which is looking at your parents' traumas and their grandparents' traumas, looking at what was going on when you were conceived. So just like a lot of digging, a lot of understanding my past. And I'm a lot more willing to look at things now. Like I really kind of process things for a bit longer now than maybe I used to. When something comes up, even if I like feel okay about it, I kind of just like sit and process it, or meditate on it, or breathe into it, and kind of let the emotions flow so that they don't end up getting stuck in my body. But yeah, I mean, the emotional healing was just as big as the physical healing, honestly.
Mm. Really sounds like it was a full-time focus for you. Like you
Yeah.
went all in to like go after this.
Yeah.
Well, you just didn't dip your toes in. You're like going full
I
force.
definitely did not dip my toes in. I went 2000%.
Wow. What is something like, what's one of the biggest lessons that the last few years has taught you that you want to pass on to your children?
Kind of like standing for yourself. I think that, we have a tendency as a society to think that everyone knows better than us. Like, oh, that person has the answer, or they know, or they're better, or like, it's like everything's out there. And I just really want to teach my boys that all of the answers reside within inside of them. Like I believe like within, I love the book, The Course in Miracles, and some of the spiritual texts that like we come into this world as perfect divine beings. And then we are conditioned out of that because of modern life and because of advertising that says
Mm.
you need this makeup or you need to wear these clothes, or, we're conditioned out of our understanding of our divinity. But really it's all about remembering that truth. And so I just really want to condition them to have a practice, whether that's being in nature or that is praying or journaling or playing music, whatever it is that connects them to the God within inside of them, like to their higher self and to a higher power. I think that that will be like the biggest teaching is like, don't go looking for the answers outside of yourself. Get quiet. Like, what is your truth? Like, what is your true north? What's calling you? What feels right in this? And I think that, that will support them even as young children, like in kindergarten, like what toys do you want to play with? Okay, you don't have to go over there because that's what Johnny's doing. Like if you want to go play with the blocks, go play with the blocks, it's just kind of like having a really strong inner compass, I think is what I'm getting at.
That's really neat. How about what would you tell yourself? Like, I know like motherhood was a bit of a surprise for you. And, these first few years have been like quite the roller coaster. What advice would you give yourself if you could go back to when you just got the news you were pregnant?
Mm.
Specifically, like around like
Surrender.
surrender.
Yeah, probably surrender. I was an event coordinator for many years. Like I love planning trips. I love lists and like I love planning things. And I like planning life. You know, gosh, life has been so crazy the last few years. And so just surrender and believe that everything is working out the way that it's supposed to, that there's a higher truth and meaning behind everything. Like have your visions, like what I was talking about with your birth plan, like
Mhm.
have your visions, like see where you want to go, and then also surrender that there's maybe something even better than what I could think of in my mind. Like cancer seems like the worst thing that could ever happen. And now that I'm 2 years through it, it's like I can start to have some hindsight to understand like why this happened and how to maybe I was preventing something worse that could have happened in the future. So just surrendering and understanding that it all like just let go, like let go, let God, put your hands up in the air and like just you know just surrender, girl.
Oh, yes. Oh man, surrender. Not easy to do, but I
No.
mean, it's sometimes it takes life hitting us in the face, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. So you have taken essentially like, I mean, I know we could keep talking about the therapies you've had, your journey, but you've really taken so much of those experiences, and you share about it on Instagram. You've also created the daily detox. Can you tell us a little bit more about just why like detoxing is so important and how important it is before we ever get the cancer diagnosis, and what people could expect to do your program? Because I've done it and it's insightful. And it's
Mhm.
like you literally go step by step through several different things you've implemented in your own healing journey, right?
Yeah. I think I mean, most simply, it's like you can put the good stuff in all day, but you have to simultaneously take the toxic out. And I think society wise, we're very focused on putting the good stuff in, because those are products that you can sell. So, but you have to have the dance of in and out and in and out. And that's why the most profound part of my healing journey, I think, has been the juicing, like juicing, getting all of those micronutrients into my body, and then simultaneously doing enemas every single day as a liver detoxifier. Or parasite cleanse have been very powerful for me. So the daily detox is an 8-week program that goes through 8 different areas of detoxification. So we talk about, we start with proper hydration, different types of water filtration, minerals that you can add to your water, how much water to drink. And then we go to juicing, to coffee enemas, to nutrition, to movement, lymphatic cleansing, supplementation, breath work and oxygenation, and castor oil packs. And I teach you, everything from how and why, what tools to buy, how to do them, And so it's an 8-week program, but really it's a lifetime program. Like I can't sign you guys up for a lifetime program. So I'm like, here's 8 weeks. I'm going to take 8 weeks to teach this to you. And then it's up to you to apply this for the rest of your life. So yeah, it's been an incredible program. And really it was just like every day it was like, how do I do this? Why do I do this? What do I do now? And I was like, I need to create a program where I just teach every single tool, because what I realized is that, you go to these cancer clinics and like I said, they do the non-toxic cancer therapies and all of that, but a lot of their focus is on simple detox tools that we can do at home. And cancer happens when when there's too much of a toxic burden in the body. So these are things that you can start doing now, while you're healthy and you're feeling really good. So there never gets to be too much of a toxic burden. It's essentially like the immune system shuts down and it can't work for you anymore, whether there's viruses and bacteria, parasites, there's just too much going on in the body and the immune system can't work because we all have cancer cells in our body. Every single person has cancer cells in their body, but if your immune system is working optimally, then those cancer cells never grow and proliferate. But if it's not, then that's when we start getting tumors and things. And so detox is a really powerful way to support the immune system every day, starting today.
That's really powerful. And I know there's been a shift. So, I mean, that program's amazing. I'm going to make sure in the show notes, we link up to your website and Instagram and all of that so that the people who want to explore more about detoxing and join your program can. But what are a few things, because this has been so your life for the last few years, but now you're pregnant, it's kind of shifted a bit. Can you share just really quick what some of the shifts are right now and how you're supporting your body, but also maybe laying down some of those extra practices?
Yeah, so I switched from predominantly raw foods to adding in like animal protein 3 times a week, more fat, like some quinoa, brown rice, kind of just like a well-rounded whole foods diet. I'm not following a diet plan. I'm just eating whole foods, like the wide spectrum of whole foods from nature. I'm still doing my hydration, my juicing. I'm not doing coffee enemas or rectal ozone right now. I'm not doing rebounding right now. So I'm focused more on like yoga, walking, and weight training. I'm not doing saunas right now, but I am excited to get those back once baby's here. Sleeping, resting, walking, kind of just like everyday wellness things, but like the major detox things, enemas, colonics, saunas. I am doing ozone ear insufflation. So that's like getting the ozone into the ears. I just don't want to be inserting air or really anything into the colon right now. Those are probably the big ones. I'm like, and all that time that I was doing those things, now I'm napping. So.
That's good. I feel like that's a pretty good exchange right there.
I haven't napped this much since I was a baby.
Oh, that's so, do you miss any of your practices?
Yeah, all of them.
Oh,
Yeah, I like woke up every day and had a routine, and I really miss coffee enemas. I miss all of them. Like I loved doing it. That was like part of my sharing on Instagram. Is like you feel so good. And when you feel that good, it's hard not to share about it. But I know they'll be there waiting for me once baby's earthside. So it's just, it's something I'm willing to do right now. And I knew that's how it was going to go.
what is one practice or one product or even food, something that you will not go out without on a daily basis?
Watermelon.
Ooh.
I love watermelon and juice. Yeah,
Yeah.
like my Alchemy Juice. I like the sweet greens right now, which is our greens with apple and lemon. But I've also really been craving watermelon, like watermelon with sea salt. It's like what
Ooh.
I've had every morning right when I wake up. Because if I don't eat right away, I get pretty nauseous. So that's kind of like I roll out of bed, drink water, and eat watermelon.
I love it. That's great. Wow. Well, this has been such a delight and just so just inspirational, informative. Is there anything you want to share before we hop off that we haven't really talked about? Any last parting thoughts or wisdom?
I think that, before all of this happened, I tended to be more of like a watch and wait type of person, kind of like, oh, I'll deal with that like when I need to deal with that. Like that couldn't happen to me. And I think that there's a way to be mindful without there being like anxiety, without there being like, what's that? What's that? Is this going to kill me? What's this? But just a way to be like respectful of our bodies. Our bodies are like really super complex, and they really need care and love and attention. And if something pops up that seems like it's odd, just get things looked at. It's better that we know that it's not something than trying to, cancer can be dealt with in the early stages. Like cancer is not a death sentence. When it starts to become a problem is when it's been in the body too long and it starts to metastasize. It's the metastasis that kills people. It's not the cancer. So if we can just, if something seems odd, just go get it checked out. Just go take care of it. Mine was in my thyroid and it actually moved to one of the lymph nodes in my neck. And maybe that was because of how long I waited. And, who knows? That was my journey. And that was just the way things panned out for me. But, if I did this again, I would have dealt with it right the second that I saw something. And now I'm that way. Before I've had little like things on my body for years and I don't do anything about them. So I'm watching it, and now if anything pops up, it's like, I'm not scared. There's no anxiety. It's just like, let me just have all the information I need to deal with this. And it hasn't been, in any of the cases, it hasn't been anything, but then I get the peace of mind to know that like, I'm greeting things as they arise.
It's cool. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. I know there's so many who are going to want to who are listening, want to follow along with what you're doing. How can they get in touch with you or connect in with you? What's the best way?
My website is carlybrownwellness.com, and that's where the link to the daily detox is. I don't have a fall date yet because we're in the middle of one right now. But I'll probably book a fall course maybe in October, sometime around then. My Instagram is Carly Loves Kale. And the website for Alchemy Juice is alchemyorganicjuice.com.
Awesome. Oh, thank you so much. And I'm excited to continue to follow your journey and excited for your little one. It's a boy, right? You're having another boy?
Yeah, 2 boys.
So exciting. I'm going to have to keep watching we're having a boy too. So I'm going to have to get some tips. I'm like, I don't know what to do with a boy, but
is this your first or you have a girl?
Second. We have a girl.
Okay.
Yeah.
Boys are really fun. I love being a boy mom. Super fun.
I'm so excited and can't wait. So, well, thank you so much. And we'll just be following along with you. So thanks.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for this episode of the Nourished Motherhood podcast. It is such an honor to journey with you each and every single week. If you love this podcast, consider subscribing and leaving us an honest review. It helps us get this show in front of more amazing women like yourself. Thanks, friend, and we'll see you next week.